So, Greg, you asked for it, you got it. The history of Jazzinc. It's a warm summer's eve back in ancient Greece, 600 BC, where our story begins. Okay, that was a deep cut. Bonus points for those who get it, by the way. So, I've written up a little something so I don't forget the highlights of the history, going back to my childhood where the passion started and taking you all the way to today with the Jazzinc. So, really, I grew up in a very small town in the east of the Netherlands. You know, one video store, one toy store, toy store. So not much there to do or see. But my father's oldest brother, aptly named Uncle Ben, he was very much into movies, and he was really the first collector I knew. Even back in the 80s, you know, he got all the kind of action figures, and he used to get extras of some of them to keep them in box, which made no sense to me as a kid. But even for the others, because he was a very neat guy, beautiful handwriting, and he would like if he took a figure out of the box, he would really neatly cut out the blister pack from the back and keep the boards. And he also had all the extras you could get with the barcodes, like the Vader head figure cases, and what was that, the gun, the biker scout gun, and all that sort of thing. And he lived with his wife and his son Jeroen, who was my oldest cousin. His son, and he had like a room dedicated to only toys to Star Wars. That was blowing my mind. And he also had a VCR video collection, which was unheard of, at least in the Netherlands at that time. And he was the first who just really did beautiful setups and little dioramas. So I remember I remember most clearly was he had the Kenner snow speeder, and then the AT-AT with the foot on the snow speeder and Luke hanging from the setup, and setups like that. And he also had stuff, I think some of the stuff you could only get if you had like the barcodes, so little dioramas. There was something of a meditation chamber, some Empire setup from the Empire. Anyway, and so he, every once in a while, because he lived a couple of towns over, we didn't see him very often, but when we saw him, sometimes he gave me tapes on loan. He was a little anal about that too, didn't want me to damage anything, but yeah, I got some movies. And I remember it was Easter, and with my cousin Tom and his family, we always got together for Easter and Christmas to celebrate that. And so we went to get some videotapes from Uncle Ben. And I remember I got really sick that day, so I didn't see the movie that he had given me. And so after I was better, a couple of days later, I remember sitting in my robe on the couch. It must have been 10 or something, and I just popped in the tape that he had given me to watch, and it was A New Hope. And yeah, that was a big thing. It grabbed me from the start, and it was unlike anything I'd ever seen. You must have heard that 1,000 times about Star Wars, but it blew my 10-year-old mind. So I remember emptying my savings and rushed to the local single toy store that we had, which was also a toy store / camping equipment / whatever. And of course, being the 80s in some backwater town, all they had left was Hammerhead. It was a big disappointment because I wanted the Luke Skywalker, especially the Luke Skywalker in the Stormtrooper disguise. It took me a couple of years to track that down in the Netherlands. Anyway, I still bought that. It was my first figure, and I really did get a chance to build my collection, or get more toys, Star Wars toys in the later years. There weren't a lot of friends into this at all. Just me and my cousin Tom, really, and later another cousin who got into it. But you were kind of ridiculed if you were into Star Wars and the toys and that, with the boys only doing sports and all that sort of thing. Well, you know, if you were in the 80s. Anyway, there were three memories that stand out from that time. The first was that same Uncle Ben I talked about. He did the interior design, and he also did that for some stores, and he worked on a toy store about 30 or 40 miles away, and he was able to secure a visit for me and my cousin Tom with a the day before the store opened was, mind you, so it was freshly stocked, it was unopened, and I could just have my pick. And I remember walking in and it was like this whole rotating display of all the Kenner figures, and that was more Star Wars stuff than I had ever seen together in my life. And I got my chance to really get some of the cool stuff, like the Stormtrooper disguise figures. I just love that. The second one was my dad, who works with me now. I wonder, I'm going to ask him if he remembers this, but there was a World Trade Center in Amsterdam, and he went there for his job, and apparently there was a store in there as well. And so he came back late that evening. I was already asleep, and he woke me up and he gave me a boxed up, neatly wrapped up figure. It was the General Corrigan from Return of the Jedi. That one was stuck with me. And the other thing was me and my dad and my family, and like I said, my cousin Tom and their family, and we all got together with my grandparents on Sundays. And as a surprise from there, we didn't go home, but my dad and my uncle took my cousin and me to see Return of the Jedi in the theater. So for an actual movie theater. I think that might have been the first time I'd been inside a movie theater. But anyway, that was big. That was huge. So anyway, I grew up and sold off my Kenner stuff. I know. Anyway, life happened, and then it was 2015-ish, and I remember I was on YouTube and there was this video suggestion, and I think it was IGN doing a tour of the Sideshow booth at Comic-Con. And now, again, being in the Netherlands, I'd never heard of a Comic-Con, and I'd never heard of Sideshow, and I'd never seen anything like this. And I was blown away. I'd never seen anything, these statues and these figures and this detail and this realism and the mixed media and the posing. And it was next level. It was beyond anything I'd ever seen. And I remember really, really loving that. But, grown man, kids, family, starting a collection. It took me a while to cross that threshold, especially with the prices being what they were, and where would I put it? And so I remember I went back and forth a bit between the premium format quarter scale statues and 6-scale figures, because with the thing is, with the statues, they just had more impact and more presence, and I still find that you can do poses with statues that you just can't do with figures, more dynamic and dramatic. I remember trying that with a quarter scale Iron Man figure to get a pose going like the Prime 1 Iron Man. I think it was Prime 1. I don't remember. But I just couldn't get the figure to bend that way and get that pose like you see in movies, because where they can cheat and collapse a few polygons to do the Iron Man armor in poses that you can't do in real life. So anyway, doesn't matter. I went back and forth, and I ended up settling on the 6-scale figures because a couple of things. I like the mixed media, added realism. The faces with the skin, the statues look too much like a statue, a bust, and I'm a sucker for realism. And I also like the fact that you can pose them to your liking and repose them to just like have a fresh new figure. And of course, the price and the space requirements were much better for 6-scale anyway. So anyway, I remember I was really struggling to show them off to their full potential. And I knew that was possible from pictures, because you can see a lot from the real the good posers and all that. So the thing I learned is if you just put them there, they look too much like cheap action figures. There are two things that really are the most important things to start with when I'm concerned. Where I'm concerned is one is the lighting. That can really make a difference in how a figure pops and looks, and the posing. And I was surprised how much posing and futzing a figure can do for a figure, but also how much harder it is than it looks. Just getting the right and natural angles and making it look natural, and then thinking you've achieved something, and then coming back a few hours later and it still looks off. It's to me, it was much harder than it looks, but it really made much of a difference, very much of a difference in the end. So that was one thing. But I still wanted to take the collection to the next level. So I'd gotten an old phone display case, like a product display case from a place that went out of business locally. And it was a beautiful glass cabinet with good lighting, show off products, you know. And so that was a start. And had I made custom backgrounds. I'll superimpose some so you can see. And I was looking to create something more like a museum grade display, you know. And I like the plaques that you saw at Comic Cons. And at the time, I was designing custom guitars and parts and fun and amps for fun. And so I found a local company where the owner would really help me translate my ideas and designs into something that could be made. He taught me to think in the limitations of certain techniques and certain materials, certain production techniques. And so for this, we settled on the Perspex blocks, the now familiar Perspex blocks, because they could stand on their own. We could get them engraved, and the Perspex was small and not too intrusive and transparent and wouldn't take up too much space and wouldn't get in the way of the figures. So yeah, I did that, and people asked me to do that for them, and that's really how it got started, where I did stuff for my own collection that I really wanted to see, and people just asking me if I could do that for them. And then, and I remember it very clearly, it was January 1st, it's the birthday of one of my nephews, and Yannick was driving, and we were on, it was like an hour drive, and I got a message from a Facebook friend who ran a Dutch collectors group, and he sent me these pictures of a custom-made diorama he had seen. And he knew I could make stuff, and well, I don't know what he was thinking exactly, but anyway, I was blown away. And I always have like one major project a year in my spare time that I want to do, whether it is designing and building a guitar or an amp, or in this case, that diorama. I really knew I was going to do that for myself, and so I spent a lot of time drawing, designing, redesigning, and then engineering how it could all fit together. And back then I was really not thinking about efficiency or a way to be able to reproduce this. It was for me, you know. So in the end, I thought out the entire product, and the diorama and the different layers and different spaces outside and inside, and how it would all fit together. And you know, I only had to make one, so I didn't have to really think about ease of assembly or anything. Just as long as I could do it, it was fine. So anyway, I had all the parts made at that place, and he's still part of the supply chain for me for certain work. Anyway, he had the parts made. I painted them, weathered everything, assembled everything, figured out the lighting, electronics, figured out a way to make small holes and get power to R2D2 C3PO legs. I'll superimpose something on your screen so you can see there. And so anyway, I had modified C3PO and R2D2 to put small power wires in their feet so they light up when I turned on the diorama with the remote and all that sort of thing. So it was a fun project. Took a long time, a lot of energy, some sweat, some tears, a lot of cuts. Anyway, so when I was done, I was mainly on forums back then. So Sideshow Freaks forum was a big one, and that eventually led me to the Facebook groups like 1/6 Republic. And so, and I posted some pictures of the setup. I'll put some up here. And anyway, I was blown away by the response, and people were really going mad, and I was flooded with messages like, could I do something like that for them? And it had been a long and arduous project, and it had taken a lot of money and a lot of time. And I had a family, I had a day job, and no time for that kind of extracurricular activity. So, and I remember I looked it up later. It was the 36th person to ask me, and he was from France, and he said, well, what if you just redesign it? And because one of the issues I had was I could assemble it, but it wouldn't be strong enough to survive shipping, and you would be shipping a lot of air, right? I mean, the diorama is basically that, a display space. And so he said, well, what if you redesign it and ship it like an IKEA thing, so it could be flat packed, you're not shipping out a lot of air, you don't have to worry about it surviving assembled and intact, you don't have to worry about all the time it took you to assemble that. And I thought, well, that might work. Again, it would have to mean going back to the drawing board and redesigning, and that's a lot of work. But anyway, I thought it might work, and I said, well, I would need at least a dozen people to make that worthwhile. And well, within 24 hours they signed up, and so that was actually the way the first Jazzinc project was born. People ask me about the name too, and that really came from from the fact that I started a YouTube channel for that stuff, and I already had a guitar YouTube channel with my name, so I decided to use my old gaming moniker as an alias to create a second page. And that's really just a play on my initial and my last name. Anyway, so I'm not really into jazz, and I don't have a jazz company, Jazz Incorporated. No, it's not super elegant. I've been thinking about changing the name. I've even registered to name the Collectibles Collective, because that's what we are, you know. But yeah, well, the name Jazzinc has come to mean a lot to a lot of people, and it stands for something. So I don't know. Anyway, so with that project done, I got a lot of requests again, but this time to make something smaller, more affordable, because people just didn't have the money and space for that huge piece, which was over 4 feet. So that's where the Detolf Deluxe and budget ranges was born, because people said, yeah, you have the phone case, but we use Detolfs or Detolfs, I don't know. And so that's where the Detolf Deluxe and budget ranges were born. And I'd also seen the very cool Hot Toys display they had years and years ago when they first started doing Star Wars figures. They had the entryway, the Tantive entryway, and I wanted to do something like that because I love that. So I designed that for Detolf as well, because, well, that was the size I was working in then. And then people started asking me to do that scene in actual 6 scale, because for Detolf you have to force perspective and shrink to make it fit the Detolf space, which is not 6 scale for most of the stuff. So that's where the True Scale line was born, and even the name True Scale and the spelling, that was all the community. That was way before I even had a Facebook group. I was just on the forums and some of the groups, and it was, again, the groups, some people in the group saying you should. I first had this little PDF where you saw what I made and the description and the size and the prices. Didn't have a website, and they said, well, you should start a closed Facebook group, and I did that, I think somewhere in 2017 or something like that, the group you're on now. And then the website came in July of 2017, where people started asking for that, and I designed that at the kitchen table together with Janneke, my wife, on a Saturday. We're overhauling the site, by the way, because that also started with a WordPress site and some WooCommerce plugins, and it's all stitched together. But with the size, and especially now that we're licensed, that doesn't work anymore. So we've found a professional company to really start designing a site from the ground up that will allow us to have you, the basic premise is giving you a much better user experience, because we know it's not easy, but we're limited by what we can offer through the framework that we have. Anyway, I digress. So we're the True Scale, the entryway. So I redesigned the entryway and added more details because of the size and the pricing that allowed that. I added the lights, I made it actual 6 scale, so that's where the True Scale Tantive entryway came from. And many dioramas followed. They were all Star Wars and all customer request. And I had to learn a few lessons the hard way. I learned I had to take deposits, and I needed to check commitment more thoroughly, because a lot of people don't put their money where their mouth is. And I learned that with the Bespin gantry, which is why I know as soon as the last few sell out, I'm not doing that anymore. Meditation chamber, same thing. I lost money on that because I got stuck with a lot of product, and we had much more expensive production techniques than the number we actually ended up making. Same for the 12 scale stuff. First Star Wars, and now the Justice Mobile. And so after working on certain projects for a year and then losing money on them, I became more careful, basically. So the other thing I get asked about a lot is the wall mounts. That was actually based off an idea from another Facebook friend called Andrew Hutlis, and we spent quite a lot of time together with the guy at the company that made the stuff for me. A lot of time and money, and again ended up losing money. We only sold like 30 of them. They were a nightmare to make. I wasn't totally happy with the end result. And so, we're not doing that anymore. And so, another milestone after that, the first vehicle, the much requested land speeder, Luke's land speeder. And that required us to learn a lot of new stuff, including complex molds and shapes and more organic shapes, and teaching others to do paint and weathering, because I couldn't do that alone anymore. I taught my father how to airbrush. That was cool. So that led to the cargo hold, because people kept requesting the Falcon cockpit that Hot Toys had teased, and I didn't want to touch anything that Hot Toys might do until I could be sure they wouldn't make it. So then I figured the Falcon is more than just a cockpit, right? It took me a long while to make that jump, by the way. But so with the stuff we'd learned from the land speeder, and like I said, the more organic shapes and all that sort of thing, and I could now do that. And with that under my belt, I was approached in 2019 by Ryan La. He had heard a confirmation that Hot Toys was definitely not doing the BVS Batmobile, and he asked me if I would jump away from just Star Wars and also consider something Batman. I really wanted the Batmobile for myself. I love that thing I'd seen in the Comic-Con videos, but it seemed large and very complex. So I said, well, I need at least 100 people committed, which was a huge number for me back then, before I could even consider. And I would really need to make sure that Hot Toys wasn't making it. So the way he could confirm that for me, well, that turned out to be a very long and hard road. It turned out to be even much, because I based the price. You have nothing, right? And people say, well, I want to commit, but I need to know a price. And I'm like, yeah, well, I can't name a price until I've finished the design, but I understand that. So I took other Batmobiles that Hot Toys had done, like the 89 and the Tumbler, and figured out the size would be closer to that. And so I gave an initial price, which was way too low, because it turned out to be a lot bigger than either of them. And it was more complex than I thought it too. So, and people kept adding and asking for more features. So I lost a lot on the initial run, because I honored the price, but I always keep my word. And again, it shows that it pays to back us early. That's the story, and time and again. Anyway, after many suppliers had said no or backed out after a while, we got it made, and it kept learning more and more, which is why we ended up with the V3 that we have now. And that led us to being able to do the 1966, was again much requested, the Bat Signal, the Bat Wing, and then the Falcon cockpit, after we had learned that it wasn't going to get made. So that really caught the eye of many people. And I need to do a shout out here to a couple of YouTubers, especially Justin Kane from Justin's Collection, who believed that us from the start, is an early backer for everything we've done, and really helped get the story out there. He followed the entire progress and the process of getting that first Batmobile made, and he really got the word out. And Aris from Variant Comics really helped a lot too, back in July of last year with his review. That really caused a boom that we were still recovering from a few months ago, which also ended up allowing me to hire and needing me to hire Kiara to just stay on top of things. And so it's cool that we have fans at Warner Brothers, at Disney, at Marvel. Even yesterday, I got a signed piece of original Spider-Man art from one of our customers. So thanks, Michael, for that. That was really a wonderful gesture. And that is how we got the support we needed to get signed with Warner Brothers, and talking with Disney, and that's basically where we are today, and who knows what the future will bring, right? I mean, I couldn't have predicted anything like this a year ago, let alone 6 years ago. So I have to wonder where we'll end up. I mean, I still want to keep it small. I don't want to run another big company. I've done that for 20 years, and I don't want to do that anymore. So it was quite a step to hire someone. But with Kiara on, I've learned, wow, it's nice that you can teach someone who's not really into this world. And well, she's very smart figuring these things out, but it is possible to have people help you and not have to do everything yourself. So that's great. And so, well, you know, with Kiara, with my dad, of course, part-timing since 2016, I think. Always here 5 days a week. And he's always on the internet looking for Jazzinc stuff because he's so proud and he loves that. And I think he's now even part of the Facebook group. He doesn't speak much English, but he loves to just scroll through and watch some stuff. Both my boys, Luke and Leon, are part of the company doing part-time work, helping with shipping invoices and making labels and all that sort of thing. And then, well, of course, Derek, who's been a blessing with all the help he does on the social media stuff, and especially the Facebook group. So, you know, it's 7 people, most of whom work part-time. My wife works part-time, but still, it has been the journey of a lifetime, I can tell you that. Sometimes we have a saying in Dutch that says it's like a young boy's book, like I don't know how it would translate in America, but like a young boy being selected for a national team, that sort of dream, you know, building toys for a living, the stuff that I'm passionate about, and being an official partner, getting to see in a couple of weeks actually the slate for the upcoming stuff from Warner Brothers, and all this sort of thing. It's mind-blowing. It's trying. It's 365 days a year, but I'll take the bad with all the wonderful good. So thanks everyone for the support. Thanks, Greg, for asking me to do this. Hope this answers some of your questions. I must have forgotten a million things that you might have wanted to hear. But anyway, that's the story so far. And for anyone who's not heard it and joined the group recently, welcome. And I hope you'll come along with the journey and let whatever come surprise us all. Because I know that many of the group didn't think we would be here even 6 months ago. Like I said, I didn't even know. So it's interesting to see where this goes. I'm there for you. You are there for me. That's a very Friends reunion kind of deep cut. Anyway, talk to you later, and bye.